When will Shaquille Leonard be back, and should we be concerned that he's still going to be the maniac when he does finally return? Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am Jake Arthur. He is Zach Hicks. You know the two of us from horseshoehuddle.com. I am your resident credentialed media member of this site, bringing you the scoop from the facility, the stadium, training camp coming up here in a couple weeks. And Zach is just the rootinest, tootinest film guy in the biz. So welcome to the show. On today's show, while we have talked about it a little bit recently, today's all about Shaquille Leonard. It is still a topic of conversation. And if you look past the quarterback situation, Leonard is probably the biggest question mark remaining on the roster. The team has continued to talk about it. You know, Jim Irsay was on the Pat McAfee show recently. So, people everywhere when it comes to the Colts are still talking about this. So we figured we would indulge today as well. So we'll talk about kind of what led us to this point, his injury history, thoughts about his future, what he and the Colts are now saying, and why he is actually still so critical to the defense, whether, especially if he's out there, if he's not, and you involve the depth that they've had the past couple of years, regardless, he's a huge piece to the defense. So Zach, let's look at this thing. Going through his history, he's never played a full season. He's mostly played full seasons. It's not like he's been plagued by injury throughout his career, but as a rookie, he missed a game. 2019, he missed 3 games with a concussion. 2020, he had a groin that cost him a couple games, had a COVID game in 2021. And then obviously last year, he was only able to play in 3 games, but had only one of those start to finish, and he was on a pitch count in it. So really, barely had a season last year. And so he had 2 procedures last year, June and November, on his back to kind of help tidy up some nerve stuff that also affected his lower leg. I believe the latest on it is just nerve issues and getting strength back in that lower leg, the calf area. That's kind of what the biggest problem has been since last year. And so he hasn't, since that surgery in November, he hasn't really been full go. He wasn't out there during spring football. We don't know what his status is going to be in training camp. It doesn't look great to start out. So what are you thinking about this, Zach? What are your overall thoughts right now of where Leonard currently stands?
Yeah, it's tough after you just had that season that he just went through where, he missed pretty much all of training camp with that back injury. Well, actually, he missed most of training camp, if I remember correctly.
I think he missed all training camp.
Yeah, but it was with the lower leg injury. It wasn't with the back thing. It was with the lower leg injury. And then right before the season started, it was announced that he was going to undergo nerve surgery in his back to fix the lower leg thing, to fix all of that. So then he went through that big procedure, like major invasive surgery to fix that nerve issue, which held him out for most of the season. And then right when he came back, I believe he got a concussion and busted his nose too on the same play. It was just a horrific play that led to him missing some more games. Then he comes back and is on that pitch count, like you said, and then plays a little bit of the Washington Commanders game. And then he gets shut down for the whole season because the back flares up again, because the lower legs flare up again. So it's just like a nightmare season for him. There was just nothing going right. And as a result, he had to have a second major surgery in that same area to fix those nerve issues. And, this is kind of really concerning, it's hard to say this lightly because it's not like it's just I don't even want to say that this is a lower thing, but a torn ACL, you can usually get the surgery on that, go through your recovery, and there's not going to be super long-term, multiple surgeries to fix it. Typically, sometimes there are, but typically you can get that thing cleaned up because of where modern medicine is with that now. But having 2 major surgeries on nerve issues in your back that have been leading to issues in your lower legs, that has to be just a major recovery time. Has to be major, again, just trauma in your back and trauma in your body to go through those type of surgeries. And, I've seen issues with people in my everyday life, my mom actually included, where she's had nerve surgery and you have to see them try to rebuild that confidence in that body part. So I can only imagine what it is for an athlete who has to be at tip-top shape and is going to be out there taking a lot of hits. And, I think the concern here with Shaquille Leonard is, he's opened up about injuries in the past, and he's talked about, with his concussion back in 2019, where he really contemplated his future because he had a concussion. Now, flash forward to now, he's had 2 major surgeries and another concussion. Like, there has to be some concern about what his future is in the NFL. And if there is much of a future with this major surgery, with him still not on the practice field, him going through a major recovery process and having another concussion where, again, last time he was contemplating things that he was very open and honest about back in 2019 when he had a concussion. So it's like, there is reason to be concerned here. We're not making a mountain out of a molehill. Like, there really, really is a reason to be concerned with what his logical future is in the NFL and with the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, he's the only one that can speak on his current headspace, but just judging from the past, just like you said, in 2019, with that 3rd week of the concussion, he had a headache like that whole time, I believe. He started to think, I have a wife and kids. Like, what does my future look like? At the end of the 2021 season, even just from a football perspective, I believe he said he fell out of love with the game briefly. So, I mean, no one could blame him if he's still contemplating his future, and that could be part of the delay as well. Cause like you said, you have to be confident in your body moving forward. And he has said before, I don't want to go out there and be a detriment to the team. I want to go out there and look like myself.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be disgusted with what he sees on film, watching himself play. So yeah, that's really interesting. And from a Colts perspective, I mean, at the end of the day, this is a business. You hope to see him back out there. But his contract, it goes through 2026, I believe. But for the Colts, after next season, there's only $12 million remaining in dead cap. And they would save, I believe, like $50 million in cap space over those last couple years. But you've got to look at it from the Colts perspective as well. They've also got to be contemplating his future. Like, what do they do with that contract if nothing really happens this season and you've got largely 2 missing seasons from this one player who is the highest paid at his position?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to jump the gun here and say that he's already missing this next season and look at the contract too hard, but
right.
I'm sure it's something that's in the back of the Colts' mind and in the back of all of our minds as well, where it's like, look, again, you said he's opened up about falling out of love with football. He's opened up about contemplating his future and stuff. And again, that doesn't mean that he's destined to retire, but
no.
When you have these kind of intrusive thoughts and these things, these like thoughts about bigger things than football, and you've already got your life-changing money, you've already started your foundation and all that. Like, he's done a lot of good with that money. And obviously he's doing a lot with his family with that money, and you're getting older. Like, it's tough going through this process multiple times. That's the big reason why, and we're going to talk about in our second segment, Andrew Luck retired. It wasn't that injury was just crippling and he was never going to recover from it. He didn't want to go through another big rehab process as a grown man, like nearly turning 30. He didn't want to go through that entire process again when he's already made life-changing money and he's got interest away from football. So again, we're not just saying this is doom and gloom, like Shaquille Leonard's going to retire and walk away like Andrew Luck did, but there has to be more concern for this than just any old injury, because this is 2 major surgeries he's had, and he's had a lot of injuries in his career, and he's already made life-changing money. Like, there is real reason for concern here, especially with him kind of not really being close to playing right now from all reports, which I know we're going to talk about here in the second segment, but I'm concerned. You're concerned. You were looking at the contract there, so I know that you're pretty concerned here too, Jake. But yeah, it's a big thing to talk about right now because he's such an impactful player, and I think there is logical fear in this situation.
Yeah, I think there has to be until we hear something truly productive, not just I feel better. We got to see something on the field. So in a second here, we're going to get into more of, what Leonard's saying now, what the team is saying now, and things like that, because you want to hear it from the horse's mouth, no pun intended. However, First, let me tell you about our friends over at eBay Motors. Our partners over at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer. They're going to bring you some of the best fantasy picks week in and week out. With draft prep underway for the upcoming season, there's still some long drafts going on for dynasties, new, yearly startup leagues. Everyone's just still kind of doing their research right now. But with Vinny, he's going to give us an eBay guaranteed fit fantasy pick of the week. And the one I relate most to, because he's someone I keep every year, Austin Eckler from the Chargers. Do you guys know which running back has scored the most touchdowns over the last 2 years? You could think it's Henry, Jonathan Taylor, Dalvin Cook, whoever. It's actually Austin Eckler. He has 38 scores since 2021 and is in a featured receiving first role out there with Justin Herbert. That honestly makes him a guaranteed fit for the first overall pick in this year's drafts. He's going to see his usual high leverage work as a runner, and again, remaining the focal point of the short passing game. Guys like Keenan Allen, Mike Williams have been banged up. It seems like Eckler is the biggest constant in that offense from a skill position perspective. Vinny from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you guys win your fantasy championships. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is all about each player being a perfect fit, which is honestly the same thing with your vehicles. With eBay Guaranteed Fit and over 122 million parts and accessories for your vehicle right at your fingertips, you can make sure that your ride stays running smoothly. Air filters, brakes, batteries, taillights, alternators, shock struts, you name it, eBay Motors has it. For someone like me who is not immune to car trouble, but gets overwhelmed by hearing about all the zillion parts that are involved in a car, eBay Motors has got it for you guys. They'll make sure it's the right fit for your car because their guaranteed fit helps you understand exactly what part you need for your vehicle the first time around. So go forth, switch gears, crank the AC, and say goodbye to sweating it if your ride needs a little fixing up. Because now you know that you'll always be set up for success from the get-go. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, everything your vehicle is calling for is just a click away. For the parts and accessories that fit your vehicle, just look for the green check. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
And all you wonderful everydayers, be sure to tune in with us throughout the whole month of August as our guy Jake Arthur is going to be boots on the ground at Colts training camp. I might be out there for a little bit as well. I got to make my way across the country to get there. But if I'm not, Jake will be there throughout all training camp, giving you the boots on the ground, the lowdown scoop on everything Colts throughout the month of August. All right, Jake, so diving into this second segment here, we're going to be talking about, again, why we're concerned. Because obviously you can look at the injury history. You can look at some of Shaquille Leonard's past comments, but if the team was coming out and saying like, oh yeah, we're expecting him to practice next week, then I'm feeling good. Or if the team doctor were coming out and saying like, oh yeah, he's progressing super well and we're expecting him to get out here in training camp pretty soon, then we'd be feeling better. But it's been a lot of non-committal stuff lately from the Colts perspective. And I think part of that is, part of the reason that it's kind of come to the forefront right now is because Jim Irsay went on the Pat McAfee show the other day and said, Shaquille Leonard has a chance. What? Like, has a chance? Like, I'm not even faulting Jim here, because what we love about Jim is you get the unabashed honesty from him all the time. and I think that's what he was giving us there was a look behind the curtain being like, oh yeah, he has a chance. It's like, dude, we're almost a year away from his surgery. We're past the half year mark of his surgery, and hearing he has a chance for this next season or for the off season, like that's concerning, man. That's super concerning. And it's just another thing you can kind of throw in there to be like, is he going to play this year? Like, because he has a chance doesn't inspire much confidence in you.
No. And I mean, sure, it sounds optimistic, but again, when you look at the fact that you're more looking to hear that, yeah, he has a chance to be ready week one. That's what you're hoping to hear, not he has a chance to play this year. Because like you said,
yeah,
we're well past when the thing started. And like, I do not like you, there's no blame to go around. It's not something you can blame anybody for anything. But we've just learned that, these sort of non-committal answers and things like you're just looking for productive or truly optimistic talk and you're just not getting it. it honestly, like, and no one could have foreseen the Andrew Luck retirement coming when it did. But like, this just puts me in that exact same spot.
Mm-hmm.
It's rinse and repeat every week, because when we get to the season, or when we get back to the point where we're going to be talking to the team every week again, Leonard's status will come up until he gets back. And what it was all last year was basically he'll be ready when he feels 100%, or from his perspective, I'll be ready when, I feel like myself again, and this and that. And it's like, okay, well, that, like, there's no timetable to that. Like,
yeah. And it's not even saying like, oh yeah, we deserve answers. Like,
we don't.
Yeah, I'm not in the least bit saying that. I'm just saying that's a reason to be concerned. You know, I'm not getting up there and demanding you tell us exactly when Shaquille Leonard is coming back or else. Like, I don't care about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm perfectly fine with them playing it by ear and letting the recovery process, go about the way it's supposed to go. But it doesn't make me not concerned about it, because like you said, you and I were very close to the Andrew Luck situation. I was actually out there at camp, I think like 2 or 3 days before he retired.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were obviously working for the Colts organization back then as a Colts reporter. And that whole entire month of August leading up to his retirement was, Andrew's progressing. He's progressing. We just want to see more from him. We want to see the confidence up. He'll be out there when he feels ready. We're still trying to figure out what's going on with the calf and all that. Like, it was concerning. And then obviously the shocking retirement comes, but flash forward to now, every time you talk to Shane Steichen or every time you talk to Chris Ballard, it's like, oh yeah, he's progressing. We'll see where he's at. We'll see what's going on. Like, it's concerning. Like, it sounds very similar, to a lot of the stuff we heard about Andrew Luck prior to his retirement. And again, I'm not saying that this means Shaquille Leonard's going to come out with a retirement announcement tomorrow, but it does kind of lead my pessimistic mind, I guess, to go there, because we have seen a star player walk away with an injury concern that wasn't some quick fix, just like what Shaquille Leonard's going through right now.
Yeah. And I will say, because I've got to imagine this probably has pretty concerning theme and tone to it today. Everything that's come out from them has been somewhat positive, while non-committal, really. Right. It's been positive. Shaquille worked out with Zaire Franklin in the Tampa area, I think, during the offseason. And, they both had a lot of positive to say about it. I mean, Zaire said he looked great. Shaq said he feels way better. And this was probably at least a couple months ago. He said he feels way better right now than he did at any point last year. And again, there were points last year where he was able to get on the field. Yeah. So, I mean, gun to my head, I don't think he's going to be out the whole time, because it does sound a little better than last year, or maybe they've just learned how to better phrase it. I don't know. But I do want to say there has been some positive notes coming from their side this offseason about it. Like, it sounds like it is coming along. It's just probably not where they want it yet. And
I don't want to make this podcast all seem doom and gloom. Like, Shaquille Leonard is certainly retiring. He's never going to play in the NFL again. It's just, we have our fears around it. Like, that's the main point that we want to come to with this episode. And we're trying to give you guys the reasons and the groundwork for that. We talked about his injury history, talked about some of the comments and how they kind of mirror the Andrew Luck stuff. But at the end of the day, he could still go back out there in week 1 and be Shaquille Leonard again, which is this super impactful defensive player who forces 400 turnovers and craziest in the craziest ways possible. Like, that's the best case scenario here. But you also have to consider the other possibility, which is maybe this injury just doesn't heal, like, it's not, again, that's not exactly what's happening, but like, I'm just worried. That's the best way I could phrase it here, is like, there's reason to be worried here. And it's not just all smoke for the heck of making smoke, like, there is legitimate fear here. And I'm glad to see that he's working out with Zaire Franklin. I'm glad to see that he is doing at least some stuff away from football, but like, I want to see him on the football field before I start to calm down a little bit about this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'll also say, you and I have been very pro Shaq Leonard throughout this whole last couple years dealing with this, because he's had his detractors, people say, he's soft, or he's not in it, or he's got his bag. very much not that, because no one is gutted about not being out there as much as he is. Like, as much as you as a fan might be annoyed about it, he feels awful about not being able to play and be out there with this guy. So
yeah, like, come on. Like, come on. Calling a player soft who's had major nerve surgery in his back. Like, come on, man. Yeah, I have seen some people say, I've had some people say the craziest things about, like, ever since he changed his name to Shaquille Leonard, he doesn't want to play football. And like, get out of here, man. Like,
that's very weird.
Like, look, we're talking about a football player. We're talking about a crazy football player. Shaquille Leonard is crazy on the football field. Shaquille Leonard's the type I think would build a burner account just to doubt himself, just so he has motivation going into a game. Like, that's who he is. You know, he needs to find every little way to motivate himself, and then he plays like his hair is on fire. You know, it's not always perfect. There are coverage gaffes, and there are some mistakes in the run game, taking on blockers and stuff. But, like, he's a phenomenal player. He's Hall of Fame bound if he continues what he was doing before the injury. And he's done a lot of good things for this organization. He's not just giving up. You know, it's like, come on. If he were just giving up, he would have retired already. He would have had the second surgery and just stepped away. Like, if he was really giving up. But for him to have to go through this long recovery process multiple times for this injury, that shows his commitment to the team. So yeah, get out of here if you're going to come at it with that stuff. We're talking about logical fears with the recovery of this injury and just if he can be Shaquille Leonard again. But yeah, we're not talking about him being soft or anything like that. And I think this segues perfectly into our next segment, Jake, where we're going to talk about the impact that Shaquille Leonard brings to this defense and why it's so important to get him out there. But first, a word from our friends over at Bird Dogs. Fellas, it's summer, and that means by no means are we required to wear pants when we don't have to. Now, I obviously wear something down there, but we're not required to wear long pants. Bird Dog has got you covered with the best shorts in the game. They make you look good, and their stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Bird Dog shorts do exactly the thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. They also use anti-stink sweat wicking fabric and keeps you cool and dry all day long. Guys, I'm a huge shorts fan. I just love shorts to death. So when Bird Dog sent me a pair of their shorts, it's the only thing I wear. I go outside wearing them. I go to work wearing them. Sometimes my bosses don't love that, but I go to work wearing them, you know, because I just look too good. They can't be too. I'm showing everybody up wearing my Bird Dogs khaki shorts. But guys, I'm telling you, if you're a big shorts person like me, you don't like just your legs feeling constricted by everything, go with Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonnfl for a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedonnfl for a free Yeti style tumbler. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. I promise you. All right, Jake. So getting into why Shaquille Leonard is super important. Now, I have been on record multiple times saying that, yes, Shaquille Leonard's this phenomenal player, but I have concerns with his fit in this defense, some concerns with some of the overall things he does on the field. But there's one thing that we really can't refute when it comes to Shaquille Leonard, and that is just how valuable the turnovers are that he brings. There's just something about him. I don't know if he has some voodoo magic or what it is with him, but he just is a walking turnover. Like, he just creates turnovers, and turnovers for the longest time have been this extremely volatile stat where, you know, a linebacker could go one season creating 10 turnovers or 11 turnovers, and the next season maybe create one or two just because of the opportunity, because of the way the ball bounces, because of the way things happen. But Shaquille Leonard has always been consistent and how he creates turnovers. It could be from punch outs. It could be from interceptions. And the interceptions could be, you know, the ball just bouncing into his hands. It could be him making a phenomenal play. Whatever it is about him, he's just a walking, talking turnover. And the Colts missed that last year. That was the biggest thing missing from this defense. And it's why they were out there for so many plays. They just could not get teams off the field because they could not force turnovers. So when you take a player like Shaquille Leonard out of a defense, yes, you miss the good run defense. Yes, you miss the coverage highs that he brings in the pass game, but you really miss the turnovers. Those turnovers are so huge in today's NFL. So when he's not out there, like, you could definitely feel it on this defense, because there's not, like, every play there's a chance for a turnover with Shaquille Leonard, and you just did not have that last year with the Colts defense.
It's really true. I mean, even in the spare parts he was able to play last season, that Washington game, he had a pick fall right into his hands. it just defies logic. Truly, it truly does. And with how good that Colts defense was for so much of last year, imagine how it would have been with those turnovers. Like,
right.
That's how we will finally see the Colts at its full potential. And again, a couple years ago, before he had that contract extension, even true football guys who may not appreciate like the totality of his game that I talked to, they were like, yeah, he might give up this and this on defense, but you had to give him that huge contract because, like you said, there's just some sort of magic to his game where he is a magnet to the ball.
Yeah.
And takeaways are just bonus points. Like there's nothing more valuable than that on the defense. So it's incredibly invaluable. And I mean, from a leadership perspective as well, like you got a really young defense now. I mean, you do have guys like DeForest Buckner and Zaire Franklin and everything. But a guy like Leonard just like makes it more fun to play, and they feed off of his energy, and he's just a live wire out there. Like there's just mentally, physically, and again, the turnovers, like him out there is just an enormous bonus for the Colts defense.
Yeah. You just need that impact. And I am one of those people on record, like you said, those football guys who nitpicks him and nitpicks part of his game. And there are some reasons why I was a little lower on him than a lot of people, but I was fully on board with paying him because of the turnovers. Like I think it was like 2020 where I just stopped like saying that those are going to regress, because it kind of like you got to the point where it's like, okay, these aren't going to regress. It's just what he does. It's just who he is. Like there are certain players like that, obviously to a lesser degree, because this player was a shutdown corner as well. But Deion Sanders was kind of this way. He wasn't going to come up and fit the run. Deion Sanders was taking run plays off, and there was some coverage gas every now and then, but he was going to take the ball away. That's what he would do. And then once he took the ball away, he'd make a big play happen. Shaquille Leonard kind of has that level of impact where it's like, sure, he might get beat on a seam route over the middle. Sure, he might get washed by a center getting up to the second level in the run game, which he's gotten actually a lot better at that. But he will punch the ball out. He will come away with a game-winning interception. We saw during his fantastic rookie season just how many games he ended with interceptions. We saw it carry over to the 2019 season, also 2020 season. It's just what he does. We would always say when the team had a final drive against the Colts, like, we need a Shaquille Leonard turnover. We need a Shaquille Leonard interception. Like that's always what we said.
Yeah.
So that was the big thing missing last year. And, they have good depth behind him. They have EJ Speed. They have Zaire Franklin. We're both extremely high on those two players, but even if they're playing at Pro Bowl levels, which they feasibly could because they're very good linebackers, they're not going to create the turnovers that he does. I mean, Zaire Franklin, had one forced fumble last year two forced fumbles. He had two forced fumbles last year and 0 interceptions. Like great play, really good player last year. Had a really good season, but he just doesn't force the turnovers that Shaquille Leonard does. So that's just a major, major impact that these linebackers that we think are really good just don't provide, but Shaquille Leonard does. So that's why you just need him out there this year, even if you feel pretty good about that depth behind him.
And honestly, that even kind of took a hit because Bobby Okereke was arguably your potential biggest playmaking linebacker outside of Leonard, and he's gone now with the Giants. So you're really reliant now on Franklin and Speed, which on paper looks like a pretty good starting tandem. You hope someone like JoJo Doman could do something if someone got hurt, Cameron McGrone. But it looks a whole lot prettier if Leonard is out there and it's that starting three, because it could be on real shaky ground otherwise, because there's a lot of unknowns behind those starting two.
Yeah.
So no, just from a depth perspective, it looks better with him out there. Statistically, I think you said they'd been top 11 every year since Leonard had been there, and last year they were bottom half of the league with those turnovers. So it's a proven statistical fact that it's just better with him out there.
Yeah, I want to say they were top 8 every single season outside of 2019, that bad season with Jacoby Brissett. And then obviously that peaked in 2021 when they were second in the NFL in turnovers and takeaways with like 33 that season, behind only the Dallas Cowboys. Like they were averaging like 2 takeaways per game that year. Yeah. And he was a big part of that. He was a massive, massive part of that. So when you take that out of the equation, then you see what they did last year where they fell almost outside the top 20 in turnovers forced, and the defense kind of fell apart late in the season because they just didn't have that juice to take the ball away when they needed it. But I think that's all we have on this topic here, Jake. Again, all you wonderful everydayers, we're going to be giving you daily content in August, talking about Colts training camp, really getting into the nitty gritty of what to watch in training camp and doing some fun topics around that. And if you guys don't already, follow at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on Twitter. Also subscribe to Locked On Colts podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. And let us know in the comment section on this YouTube video what you think about the Shaquille Leonard situation. Now, again, don't be hateful. Don't say that he's soft or anything like that. We will not tolerate that kind of crap. But outside of that, let us know what you think about this topic. And, are you concerned about the future of Shaquille Leonard, or are we kind of blowing it out of proportion and being just crazy podcast guys? You let us know in the comments there. We'd also love your guys' ratings, reviews. So go to iTunes and do that whenever you have a chance. And we'll see you guys bright and early next week.